Hi, I'm Matt Dillahunty, and you're watching Atheist Edge.
Hey, we are at the World of Beer in Fort Worth, Texas, and we just watched a debate. And can you remember the Christian's name? Dr. Damn, see, I can't. It'll be in the description section.
Ben Arbor.
Ben Arbor.
Yeah.
This is the first scene for me. Lackluster performance, right off the bat. Tom Jump, who it's the first time I actually met face to face, but we are friends on social media. Did an outstanding performance. Did you watch the whole thing?
I came in a little late, but I watched maybe about an hour and a half of it.
What jumped out at you? Oh, I'm sorry for the pun. Tom Jump.
Oh, yeah.
What jumped out at you as a notable performance by either of them?
I was really impressed with Tom Jump's performance. I thought that he was able to capture the more complex subjects that Dr. Arbor talked about and really make his rebuttals very simple, straightforward. I thought Dr. Arbor knew quite a bit about the theories that he was discussing, but it was difficult to see some of the reasons as to why he was putting certain things together. He didn't really make a lot of his reasoning from point A to point B very clear.
Yeah.
Maybe because there's not very good, from my perspective, because there's not very good reasoning from point A to point B.
When he was talking first cause and Kalam, cosmological argument, and the ontological, didn't it sound like he was just copying and pasting William Lane Craig?
I thought he was.
Were those independent thoughts of his?
Well, I think the Kalam cosmological argument is very commonly used among Christian apologists.
Yeah, I got it. But it was almost sounded word for word Bill Craig. I don't know. It just struck me as that
for the most part. But I think that Bill Craig Dr. Craig would have done a better job. I feel like Ben Arbor was kind of missing a few steps, at least from my perspective, that would have at least clarified his argument, even if, people like me didn't agree with it.
On Patheos, you write under the name Martin Hughes.
Right.
What are some of the articles that you've written, the most recent ones, and why?
Well, most recently, there was a time when I was writing about the atheist banners, that type of thing.
Nice. That's right. I forgot. You really boosted us a lot.
Right. I feel very passionately about making sure that atheists have representation in this country and that they're not just railroaded over by things that we're railroaded over by every day, like "In God We Trust" showing up everywhere. And God We Trust being our motto. So that's something I'm fairly passionate about.
We got hit by so many, Mexico, Telemundo, Estrella TV, Canada, we were all, we got hit with a lot of media requests. You were among the few core media outlets that did their due diligence and went back and confirmed everything you were going to put into print. What other
things?
Yeah, Patheos. Yeah, what are you looking into?
Well, right now I'm kind of looking into the upcoming election.
It's real close.
And yeah.
Who's your pick right now?
Right now my pick is Elizabeth Warren.
She's as of today the front runner, right?
No, I think that Biden is still the front runner, right?
You might want to look again.
I'll double check.
There's a couple states where she's the front runner now.
A couple states, yeah.
Yeah.
But like nationwide, I think Biden is still.
Is Tulsi still in it? That's my horse, Tulsi Gabbard.
To the best of my knowledge, I haven't seen anything of her out, but I don't know if I'm mistaken on that.
But I'll pick a grilled cheese sandwich over Trump, so it doesn't matter.
So I was looking at that. I've been kind of thinking a lot about healthcare, Medicare for all. I've been thinking about just kind of the divide between Christians and atheists, and how to bridge that.
How do you bridge that?
I guess in some ways it depends on how you're defining the divide. Like if the divide is relationships, I think that we can focus on goals that we have in common and work on those common goals, even if we have different philosophies.
Let's say you and I agree on 99% of the way forward, and that 1% we vehemently disagree on. Is it enough if I'm walking, let's say I'm the one that walks out a step, you're part of the atheist community that agrees 100%. There's one issue where I disagree with, and I walk out a step with the rest of the atheist community. First question is, do you feel that walking out a step warrants excommunication, which is commonly the case now? And second, is there a way to just resolve that and keep us united?
Well, I think that something like that, it would have to take in the full context of what exactly is going on between different people. I think that in Christian circles, a lot of times there's a process. There's, you sin, right, and then you repent, and then if you repent, a lot of times you're kind of let back into the fold. At least that was my experience. Not always, but.
Is that the case with the atheist community, though?
I feel like with the atheist community, there is a significant contingent of what you might call, what's commonly called call-out culture.
What call-out culture?
Yeah, basically.
Cancel culture.
Or cancel culture.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. That's how I know it.
Yeah, but
rationality rules. I didn't want to get in. I don't want to belabor rationality rules in essence of thought, but he did admit that his original video did contain some errors, and he atoned for those, and he tried to correct them. Took him about 3 weeks. Took longer than he should have, but during that process, there was a lot going on at the atheist community of Austin. I really don't want to belabor this, but if he made amends for that, is he back in the fold now?
Well, I don't know enough about that issue to comment in a lot of detail, but I will say that generally speaking, I think it's important to consider people who have been hurt by things that have been done in the atheist community, and to allow them to say, okay, we don't want to associate with this particular person who might be a leader in the community because we have to protect ourselves or our own interests. I don't really see anything necessarily wrong with that.
When you say not associate with, you mean on an organizational level?
On an organizational level, and even
on a personal level, do you block? Now the thing is, this is where we may disagree, but I believe that blocking, muting, banning people from your social media. You're a public figure. People see you. When you deprive them of being able to see the content that you deliver, do you believe that you're creating an echo chamber?
I think to some extent it might be necessary to just as an extreme example. Say you're part of a conference of people who are meeting together as mathematicians, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to allow people into that conference of people discussing the upper levels of mathematics? Are you going to allow somebody in who says, in a base 10 system, 1 + 1 = 3? Are you going to allow that person
That's
to be
a really good
point,
man. That's a good point.
So, that's
a good analogy.
That's something that I think that in a lot of, for lack of a better way of putting it, social justice circles, especially within atheism, a lot of us are speaking at a certain level that takes for granted the fact that several marginalized groups should be viewed a certain way and should be treated a certain way. That's the foundational basis, and then there's several steps ahead of that. And to let somebody into that conversation, and atheism may be a part of, that whole system, that whole theory that they're discussing, going back and forth on. But to let somebody into that conversation who says, well, this marginalized group, one of the fundamental places where they're starting from is wrong, that may just derail the conversation.
I get you.
Like for me, For me, I used to really, really entertain people who said racism is not a serious problem in the United States. I used to get out articles. I used to go and go back and forth.
I admit that you would know the answer to that question better than I. I will give you that admission.
Right.
You wake up every day knowing the color of your skin.
True.
I go weeks not even realizing the color of my skin. So there's a difference, right?
This is true, yeah. But I used to go into detail on, and then after a while I was like, why? And after a while you get impatient because you want to figure out how to fix these problems of inequality in America so that we can all, lift America up to be a stronger nation. And if you're just always stuck at debating whether or not racism even exists, then you never really get to the point where you're actually doing something about the problem. And so it became more and more necessary for me to say, okay, if somebody says racism is not a serious problem in America, I can't even really debate that with you. I don't have time.
Yeah.
I'm moving on to this arena of things. But if somebody else wants to do it, they're more than welcome to.
It brings me to another point you just brought up, having a voice, right? 13% of America is black. Don't tell me 13% of Congress is black right now. It's not even close. So that would be your first. I'm trying to think for you, but.
Well, I don't know if it's so much that we're trying to get people of the right. Getting people who are in office and are, proportionate
right
to the population, that if the more that happens, the more that might be symptomatic of something deeper, which is that,
they're just not getting elected.
Black individuals have a voice in this country. Hispanics have.
Are black people not voting enough?
White individuals have a voice in this country. Actually, black people vote more than just about any other demographic, especially during the Obama years. Like, black people
did they
outvoted? Yeah,
I don't know.
So,
are they going to get out there in 2020?
I don't see why. I mean, if you look at a graph of how people voted, right, during the years that the year that Trump was elected, black people overwhelmingly voted against Trump.
Why wasn't it enough, though? I just don't understand.
Well, black
because
people, minorities overwhelmingly voted against
Trump's stranglehold is
Trump.
about 38% of this evangelical white, how did he garner more than that?
White men, disproportionately, and white women. Just looking at the facts, the way that the vote divides out, white men especially mostly tended to vote for Trump. For me, that says something. I mean, in my mind, Trump is kind of a terrible candidate.
He's got the intelligence of a 5th grader. So let's start there.
So the fact that the people who are voting for him are white and a lot of them male, although there's also white women who are voting for him as well.
Since he's been elected, have you noticed a difference in how the public treats you? Have you noticed a upshift in explicit racism?
I have not noticed a difference in how the public treats me personally. But statistically, there are more hate crimes. There are more mass shooters who are big fans of Trump. And are emboldened by.
Honest answer. You got to go with stats first because any anecdote you have is not statistically. It's just anecdotal.
Well, people don't believe anecdotes.
No.
Like I feel like.
No, they don't.
In a lot of my conversations on this, when I give an anecdote of how I feel racism affected me, it can always be justified. You can always say, well, you were being followed around in that store because maybe you looked a little suspicious, more suspicious than the other people in the store. It didn't have anything to do with
But it could be true. It could be rendered false. But it's a sample size of 1. That's why it's discounted.
Yeah.
When you look at a larger sample size, and we know, on your screen right now, if I can find it, I will see the uptick in racist violence because I know I can find it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's interesting because I go through all the stats every time I talk to basically a white person about this issue because it's not anything that's wrong with their skin color. It's just that in this culture, they don't experience it, and so a lot of times they don't really understand what's going on. So they may need the stats, and I may need to walk through it and hold their hand and everything. I've caught myself doing that a few times with black people, and they're laughing at me. They're like, "Why are we even talking about this? Like, we know we live racism every day in America. Why do we even have to? Do you feel like you have to prove that racism exists?" I'm like, "Okay, yeah, we're living the same experience."
Would it not
like,
be a
you
starting
actually
point
get
for the doubters, though? Would it not be a good way to bring people to your side if you could prove it?
I'm just saying that if it's somebody outside, if it's somebody who's a white individual who doesn't really think, a lot of them don't really think racism is a serious issue in this country, then I'll go through all the steps. Then I'll actually try to prove it.
Right.
And I got into the habit of doing that so much that sometimes I'd be talking with a black individual and saying, racism exists and start going to the steps, and you're like, why are you doing all this?
Telling me that, okay.
I'm going through it already.
I got you now. What kind of ties do you have to this group? And how do you feel about this group in general? I've got some serious, biased things I want to say right now, but
I think that the basic premise of bringing atheists and Christians together in conversation is good. I think it's a good idea for us to talk to each other. And one of the things that shocked me when I became an atheist is realizing how averse most Christians are to actually talking with atheists about theology.
okay,
So
that's one good thing. I'll give you that.
So the Bible and Bear Consortium is good for that reason.
Okay.
I do think that in my experiences online, they are extremely concerned about policing viewpoints, policing
Thank you.
not just language but viewpoints themselves. And it seems like, from what I hear, the bounds of what they allow to be discussed and how they allow it to be discussed are
It's skewed
getting
towards the
tighter.
believers.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason why is because when you're debating, I feel like, and this is my bias speaking to some extent, but I feel like when you, as an atheist, if you're discussing or arguing religion with somebody, it's like you're on a debate stage going back and forth. For a lot of Christians, it's a little bit more like God is important to them, or the concept of God is very important to them, since I don't actually obviously believe that God exists. The concept of God is very important to them. The experience of God really makes them feel good and fulfilled and so on. And so when an atheist comes in and interrupts that, it's more like you're coming into a quiet movie theater.
It's an affront to them.
Yeah, and trying to say, well, actually, this isn't real. They're more likely to try to push you out.
And I've seen that as far as social media is concerned, the Bible and Beer Consortium on Facebook, I'm just going to say it, man. It's a toxic environment and I'm not saying it's just the believers. There are atheists that do it as well. But it seems like there are majority, maybe not the majority, a substantial percentage of believers on that Facebook page are trying to win a debate rather than seek truths. They're there they believe they have the Word of God in their hearts, and they are going to talk you into it no matter what, and they don't want to listen to anything you have to say.
And I think, and I somewhat do sympathize with that mindset, and I know no Christian will say they actually have that mindset, but I somewhat do sympathize with that mindset because I tried to be an apologist for some time. I got my master's degree. I was midway through my doctoral program.
I never knew that.
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
How long have you been an atheist?
Since I was 46.
You're about 30, right?
I'm 36.
And you've been an atheist since what age?
Since 27.
Shit!
Yeah.
Wow. And you were in a doctoral program?
I was in a doctoral program, yes. My doctoral program was at a nearby university, and
good call.
I was studying links between African American literature and religion.
Okay.
And kind of studying the Harlem Renaissance era,
Oh, right.
like the 1920s, early 1930s. But I was kind of interested in how different forms of religion, Christianity especially, could help the black community, for lack of a better way of putting it. So, at the moment.
And you
So,
were dyed-in-the-wool Christian at the time.
yeah,
of course.
and I was gonna like C.S. Lewis. He was a literature
Wow.
professor,
Uh-huh.
and that's what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to be a force for God in the university.
Stepping out of that and looking at yourself back then, 10 years ago, what would you say to your past self about how Christianity is affecting the African nation right now?
I think it's complicated. I think to some extent that's not something that's easy to summarize.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that, to make a long story short,
Big picture, is it helping or hurting?
I feel like African Americans took something that was meant to justify their slavery and meant to justify their marginalization. They took it and they tried to use it as a tool for their empowerment.
Okay.
However, that tool of empowerment oftentimes gets taken advantage of by those in power.
Personal agendas.
And personal agendas. It can be very easily manipulated, and that is problematic. But I can see how African American Christianity has empowered them within the cultural discourse, even if I don't think that Christianity.
Gosh,
is
damn.
ultimately,
Yeah, that was probably too deep a subject to go into at any length. Thank you so much for showing up, and that's that.